feliz año a todos, feliz 2023, ya estamos, ¿quién diría? Aquí en un año nuevo, un libro nuevo, un momento nuevo en el que podemos reescribirlo todo y de una forma maravillosa. Y qué mejor que eso que empezar el año aquí en Talks con nuestras conversaciones de alta vibración, by TrasCENDER, por supuesto, por Café Club TV. Y hablando acerca de cómo salir adelante cuando hay pérdidas. ¿Pérdidas de qué forma? Pérdidas económicas, pérdidas laborales, pérdidas emocionales, rupturas. Tienes el corazón roto. Este es tu programa el día de hoy. Tienes que escucharlo. Lo que sí, activa, por favor, los subtítulos porque la entrevista es con un personaje maravilloso. Ella se llama THORP, pero ella habla inglés. Así que la entrevista será en inglés completamente. Quédate, activa los subtítulos, saca tu diccionario y aprende porque hoy día vas a saber cómo salir adelante cuando tienes una pérdida. Ya regresamos.
El canguil de casa es comedia al lado del nuestro.
Regresa la temporada online Cinemark. Aprovecha descuentos de hasta el 50% comprando tus tickets y snacks en nuestra app o en nuestra web www.cinemark.com.es. Cinemark, lo mejor que le pudo pasar al cine. Aplican términos y condiciones.
Hi, how are you? So, like I said before, I was going to study in English this part of the interview. This is our first program in 2023 here at Talks by TrasCENDER by Café Club TV. And today we have a very special person and also a very special topic. Why? Because no matter what you do, no matter what type of employee you are, no matter what kind of human being you are, we all go through lost. We all happen to have a moment in our life that we lose a job, we lose a relationship, and there we are, not feeling well. And it doesn't matter if you are a yogi, a coach, it doesn't matter if you are an engineer, we all can learn and cope with this situation in a better way. And for that, it's the reason that we have this special person today, and her name is TrasCENDER, and I'm going to ask production to please bring her in. Hi, how are you?
Oh, so good to see you, Sonia. It's been a long time.
Hello, California, right? You're in California or in Alaska, because you're also Alaska girl, right?
I am originally from Alaska, but I live in the sweet spot of the universe, La Costa, here in San Diego, California.
That's amazing. You're the only person that I know that is from Alaska.
Okay. Well, I like to keep it unique.
So it's very nice to see you. I'm gonna mention a little bit how is that I know this human being. She was my teacher, people. She was my teacher in the Chopra Center. She was working with the amazing Deepak Chopra and an amazing other teachers like our David G. David G is well known in the Latin world because we make sure we brought them to Latin America, I think like 3 times. And people love him over there, and of course his books and all that. So she was my teacher, and suddenly time passed. I became a Chopra teacher, and I have been following her career, and I saw that she created these amazing ways to cope up with all loss, with how to survive. Like Gloria Gaynor said, I was telling at the beginning that we all go through all these moments in our life. So Trista, besides that, we know that you are a coach, you work with emotional healing, you are a writer, you have your podcast, and you're a pilot. We'll talk about the pilot thing later. And all that. If I ask you, who is TrasCENDER, what would you say?
I would have to say, to be honest, at this stage in my life, on this day of 2023, I am rediscovering who I am in this moment because of tremendous loss that I've had over the last few years. And so, like many of us, I have all of the titles and, the things that I do for my work. Yes, I'm an author. Yes, I'm a speaker. Yes, I'm a coach. Yes, I'm a pilot. All of these amazing things. And I'm really at a place in my life where I'm reinventing and having to rediscover who I am today, Sonia, on the other side of a tremendous loss that I experienced several years ago. And I've just come out of a very long hibernation and deep healing. And so, of course, I have continued to teach and mentor and coach throughout that process. So it remains to be seen who is TrasCENDER, but I can tell you that who I am becoming as a result of everything that I have been through, all of it leads up to and is kind of a compilation of the choices that I make every single day, right? When I wake up in the morning and I do my meditation practice and I ask myself questions like, what's the best expression of myself that I can be today, right? Some of these daily routines and practices that I have cultivated really over the last 3 years, it's been a part of my teachings from day one. But really, when you move through your own loss and your own sort of rock bottom in your life, you go from being a teacher to being a student again, And so I think I'm still in the process of becoming.
And that's amazing because I don't think we end up the school of life, never, ever. I think every time that I thought I knew something, everything back to zero. back to zero, and that's amazing. However, I'm gonna ask you this: do you know people that when they see coaches, mentors, speakers, they're probably thinking they don't have any problem, and if they do, they will know what to do. What can you say about that?
I can say that I have actually had one-on-one clients, coaching clients in the past say to me, while I'm in the process of coaching them through something very challenging or difficult or expansive, that they don't think that I can relate to what they're going through because my life looks so perfect from the outside in. You know, and so there's truth to that. And even in all of the years that I've been teaching on a stage, there's a certain element, there's a certain energy that when you are the teacher or you're on a stage or the mentor or the coach, that there's sort of this energy around you that people want to be like you. They want to aspire to have the things that you have. And so with that comes a little bit of kind of idolizing. And I tend to keep it very real with my clients, my coaching clients one-on-one and in my group programs, and just share with them like, listen, I'm playing the role of a coach. I'm playing the role of an educator or a leader or a facilitator. I'm just a girlfriend walking the path with you though. And I share a lot of my challenges and my personal experiences with my students, with my audience, with my clients, because I don't want to be someone that they idolize and have on a pedestal, right? I want to be someone who's relatable and authentic and that's talking about the downs that I've experienced, because I feel that I have wisdom from having moved through those experiences. And I think that that's part of the beauty of what we get to share when we're in this role with the people.
So do you think we actually, can you may agree on saying that we live the life, or we live our life, have this different type of experience just to inspire others, just to share situations and help somehow?
My perspective, or my sort of belief system around that, is that we've all come into this lifetime because we have certain lessons that we need to learn, and we're all going to have a variety of experiences ranging from very traumatic, very horrific, very terrible things that we experience in our lives, all the way through to the most expansive and the most fulfilling and the most joyful and the most connected and incredible experiences. My belief, or sort of how I think about these things, is not that we have these experiences so that we can share how to walk the path with others. It's more that we have these experiences, and depending on how we choose to navigate the experience that's unfolding, will later determine, am I creating something meaningful and powerful and supportive and empowering from my story, right? And then can I use my past experiences to grow and evolve and become a better human being? And then from that place, share the wisdom. So I don't know that I believe that we have the experience because we're meant to share it later. Maybe we do. However, I do know that for me personally, and I can only speak for myself, that I've had a lot of horrific experiences from my childhood all the way up to a couple of years ago. And I think that it's how we choose to move through that has the potential to become deeply inspiring for the people who are watching from the outside as we move through whatever has just happened, right? Like we have a choice to move through the experience in a way that perpetuates the victim mentality and poor me. And, some people really struggle, and we can talk about this more this today if you'd like to. At some point when we're moving through grief and we're coping with whatever loss that we've just endured, there comes a moment, right, where we have to ask ourselves, okay, all of this stuff happened. And now my question gets to be, who am I choosing to become as a result of what's happened? Like, am I going to choose to become empowered? Am I going to choose to look for the silver lining in what happened? Am I going to look for the lessons? And then once you're kind of on that more positive path and you're looking for the answers and you're doing your deep work and, you're really doing your own reflection and healing work, you don't even have to get on a stage and start teaching or talking about it, because the people around you, they watch how you move through the experience.
Wow. Okay, Elba Graciela says, thanks so much for sharing that. Where are you writing, Elba? Elba, where are you writing from? Okay, so Trista, I understand. It's like instead of why is for what, right? It's for what? What am I going to do with this? So I read in one of your posts, something was, blew up my mind, because, oh, wow. It's not now. I mean, I think it was a couple of years ago. I read that you say something like you started to learning about becoming a pilot or flying. Something was to do with something that was more scary of what the scary situation that you were living. And I don't know if I understood wrong, but then I was like, what? Because on my case, that hit me. Why? Because in first place, that's how I end up in TrasCENDER, because I developed these panic attacks flying in a regular, not being the pilot, just being a guest at the plane. So when I see these amazing videos that you are on top of California and the ocean is down there, I'm like, oh my God, this woman has pants to do it. So my question is, what can you teach us or share with us in terms of that thing that you wrote, that you were doing something scary that was maybe more scary of what was that you were going through?
Yeah, so I will share with you all a very personal thing that happened. 5 years ago, I got married to someone who I believed was my soulmate and the love of my life. And we had built an incredible life together, and it felt very much like a fairy tale. And I was really in the best place of my life that I had ever been. And then I caught him having an affair. And I had dinner with a girlfriend the day after, and I was crying to her, and I was telling her what I had discovered, what I had actually walked in on and discovered. And she was a pilot. She's a therapist also. She's a psychologist and a therapist, but she has 2 of her own airplanes. And I had always admired watching her fly and been like, wow, she's just so cool. And that's so wild. And so I think that there was a part of me that night at dinner when I was disclosing everything that had happened and a bunch of things that had led up to that. And it was my ultimate rock bottom. Like, I felt like my whole world crumbled overnight and was turned upside down. And when he left, I lost my husband. I lost my stepchildren. I lost the business that we had built together. I lost the community that we had created. I lost everything except the roof over my head. And so I was feeling in a very kind of desperate way. And I said to my girlfriend at dinner, can we just please go flying? And she said, her airplane was in annual, which is every year you have to get, your plane goes to the doctor and it's there for a month or two. So she said, I can't take you flying, but why don't you go to the airport right up the road from your house and start taking flying lessons? And I was like, you mean you can do that? And so the next morning after dinner with her, I went and took my first discovery flight, and I've been flying ever since. And I think that the post that you read, I often call myself the accidental pilot because I never meant to become a pilot. Honestly, I started flying airplanes because I needed to do something in my life that scared me more than losing everything.
Wow.
And so every day I would wake up and I would go flying for 2 hours. And for those 2 hours of my day, I felt peace and I felt exhilaration and I felt alive, right? And then when I would come back down from flying and I was back on the ground and I would go home, then I was back in my grief and my sadness and my confusion and my like utter shock, you know? And so for me, that was flying saved my life. Aviation, I say to this day, saved my life because it got me out of my house. It got me out of my head. It got me out of my heart. And for those two, when you're flying an airplane, girl, let me tell you, there's no time to be thinking about anything except flying the airplane.
I can imagine. I mean, what can you think? It's the moment that you get distracted, you're probably you end up in the ocean. Wow, that's so amazing. And it got my attention, which I have to tell you that you're an amazing writer. Your posts are very inspiring. You know, it just sometimes, you know, some people sometimes tell me that, but I am in the other side too, telling you that there's so many people relating to the situations that I think we are all living all the time. Now, I'm just listening that you're saying that you went through a difficult time through your emotional, in talking about relationships, right? That's something that happens every day. Big example just to me. I mean, 2 years ago, I have plans. I was gonna get married. I was with someone and I work with him too. And I was, you know, when we broke up, which was suddenly, and that's it, you know, like I felt that I was losing also my new project, which was the school and you know, the relationship, and we had a great time. So he was like also my best friend, you know, and everything, because I think I have put all my eggs in the same basket, sort of.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be the person that says, "Oh, because the relationship is over, we cannot work together." So I typed my heart very tough and try for another year and a half to continue just working. And it was the hardest thing that I ever done in my life, which I was sort of proud of me, because I said, why do people have to stop working just because the relationship is over? No. I do yoga. I meditate. I try, you know, high standards. I can't just not be a friend with someone that I said I love. But then the other person, I do think that it was not really fulfilling me. And then it was to a point that it has to be over. And it was very hard. And that was just like no more than 2 months ago that I have to continue as I was before him. And it's been very hard. However, I just listen to my students, to people all the time, and there is always someone heartbroken. So, talking about the main things in life, how do we, or what can we do when we are heartbroken?
It's a really good question. And I actually took some time to jot down some notes before we got on here today to share with your listeners, Sonia. Here are the things that I did. The first thing that I'll say when you're heartbroken is, and this is largely, what I teach in my emotional healing coursework, but whenever you're grieving a broken heart, it's so important that you allow yourself to feel whatever emotions are there. If you're sad and you're devastated, if you're angry and furious or frustrated, it's so important to allow yourself to feel all of that. And it's the hardest thing to do too. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, like, the hardest thing to do is to sit with our emotions when we're in that space of grief, because they're so consuming, and we spend so much time in our head asking the question, why? Why did this have to happen? What did I do wrong? Where did things go? Where did things derail? And so my first piece of advice is learn how to be with what is. And just, if that means sit on your couch and just stare at the wall for 2 hours, do that. But what happens is that most of us, because no one likes to feel those intense feelings of discomfort, that most of us will go try to do things, right, to avoid feeling the feelings. Right. And that's the worst thing that we can do, because then what happens is it bottles up inside of us and it becomes stored as trauma and baggage. So learning how to sit with your emotion. If you're noticing you feel weepy or like you need to cry, sit down and cry for as long as it takes. It might be 2 minutes. It might be 2 hours. It might be 2 months. It might be 2 years. The biggest gift you can give yourself is allowing the space to feel and to be with what is, and not try to rush the process, right? Because we get up in our head and we want to go drink alcohol or shop or eat or, whatever it is that we do, because we all have things that we want to run away from our feelings and go do. And I think that's probably the hardest piece of it, really, is just learning how to, I'm trained in neuro-linguistic programming, and I do a lot of reprogramming of the unconscious mind. So I can go in and reprogram someone's unconscious mind, and often, but that only works when it's baggage or behavioral stuff. Yeah. So a lot of my clients will come to me and say, can't you go in and reprogram my broken heart? And my answer is no. Because you're a human being.
What could you do? Okay, the person comes and this is very common. Can you just reship me? Can you give me a new ship and let's put it in so I can totally forget about this human being and it's all bad experience that I have? Of course, that you said no. Yes, there is hypnosis. There are so many tools. In that case, what can you do in your how can you help us? Someone with your experience in a moment like that.
So I'll give you just very quickly a few things that I wrote down on my notebook here for you all. Most people lose their appetite when they're in grief or have heartbreak, and they stop eating because they're so upset and distraught. So If you don't have an appetite, at least go get fresh pressed juices, right? Do something. And Sonia, this goes back to Ayurveda, right? Like, how can we be doing self-care, taking hot baths, spending time in nature, going on walks, having a support system, whether that's close friends, family members, a coach, a therapist, having someone that you can talk with is so important, because when you're in that space of grief, you feel so alone. And you feel like, yes, I know everyone, like so many people are going through this, but the only frame of reference we have about how we're feeling is our own. So even though we know heartbreak happens every single day, we have this, it almost feels like, but it's not as bad as what I'm experiencing. Like, you don't understand. We feel alone in the grief. One of the things that I did, and this was a game changer for me, my friends, this is going to sound a little bit silly maybe at first, and my girlfriend introduced this to me. When my life first collapsed and I was spinning out in my mind, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I was literally walking, pacing inside of my house from room to room, sobbing. I had anxiety. It was just like the worst thing. And so one of the things that I did to help calm my mind, okay, to help, because it's your mind, right, that keeps thinking about the thing that happened and replays it over and over and over again. And so that keeps you stuck in this perpetual loop of pain and suffering and agony. And so one of the things that I did was I went on Amazon and I bought a package of these little things.
What's that?
It's like a little, so for people who run relay races, and it's a little timer.
Okay.
It's a clicker, right? So you put it on your finger and you press this button to turn it on, and it'll say it's at 0.
Uh-huh.
And what I would do is I would keep this on my finger from the time I woke up in the morning until the time I went to sleep. This is what you do when, like, your mind is running away with you and you just cannot even deal with the day. I would repeat the mantra, Om Namah Shivaya.
Wow, it's a good one.
It's such a powerful mantra. And one of the things that it does is it infuses positive energy, and it removes negative energy. And so this will help you gain control of your senses, this particular mantra. Okay. So literally, here's what I would do. I would keep this on my finger all day long. It's got like a little buckle thing back here so you can keep it on your finger. And I would, anytime my thoughts went to what was happening, I would say the mantra Om Namah Shivaya, and I would click it once. And it's a counter.
Right.
So no matter how many times you click it, it's counting. And so at the end of the day, as I was doing this all day long, and I would do this while I was driving in my car, I wore this while I'd go to the yoga studio for an hour-long hot yoga class on my yoga mat in the public. Like, I had this thing on my finger, upward dog, downward dog. Every time I felt those thoughts coming back in about what had just happened and how my life was falling apart, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And what happened was at the end of the day, the end of the very first day that I did it, I can't remember the exact number, but it was 460 or 468 or something like that times that I had clicked this and repeated that mantra. And you might be thinking to yourself, what's that actually going to do though? I'll tell you, the energetics behind that mantra are very powerful. And it's the vibration that is being sent out into the universe to bring in positive light and remove the negative energy. And even if you don't believe in any of that, or if that seems
Right,
too,
because there must be people that are saying, like, I don't know anything about that. Like, they don't relate to mantras, right?
yeah, of course not. Because even a lot of my close friends were like, that's a little weird, but whatever works for you. And yes, I was in the place of like, listen, whatever works, because I was in a really bad way. So here's the point that I want to make. Even if you choose a different mantra, maybe there's something from your own religion or your tradition or, whatever, or you just choose something very powerful. Here's what I know is that at the end of the day, when I saw 468 clicks or whatever it was, I knew that 468 times that day, I chose to redirect my thoughts.
Yes.
Because our thoughts, yes, we can have a broken heart, but it's really there's a 90-second rule. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, you may have seen her video at the Chopra Center. She's a Harvard-trained neuroanatomist who had a stroke and witnessed herself moving through the stroke. Well, we would play that a lot at the Chopra Center events. She actually did a study on emotions and came up with this 90-second rule that emotions only last 90 seconds. But the thing that keeps them cycling and keeps them alive is our thoughts. We keep going back to the same thought, right? So we wake up and my first thought was, oh my God, did I catch him having an affair? And is it true that he doesn't want me anymore? Is it true that he's leaving this marriage for this person? Is it true that my entire life has just like been turned upside down? I was like, tell me this is a bad dream, right? So it's my thoughts that kept perpetuating. And as silly as it seems, this helped me so much in the first few months when my mind was running away with me.
Wow. And it's also a proof of how many times we can hurt ourselves. Because yes, you rejected 400, you redirected, you rejected, whatever we want to call that, thought in a good way. But if you wouldn't do that, it's like self-hurting 400 and so many times. I love that exercise. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you so much. It's amazing.
You're welcome. It's kind of a funny one. I know it seems like it's so random, and different things work for different people, right, friends? Right? We all process and experience grief and loss differently. We all cope with it very, very differently. But there was two things actually besides this little lifesaver and flying airplanes. There were two things. There were two things that in my mind every day in my morning pages that I would journal about. And the first one was, and this is really specific to what happened in my situation. I was angry at him. I was angry at her because she's someone that we worked with and traveled on the road with. And so there was a lot of, it would have been very easy for me to become angry and blame and want to hurt them or get back at them or, all of these things that we feel as humans, right? Get the revenge. And so I remember thinking to myself, and it came through as a thought, right? It wasn't a logical thought that I had, but maybe it was my higher self, or I don't know. I was meditating and it occurred to me to stay in my own lane. What I mean by that is don't even look at, there's no blaming and no shaming out there because it's irrelevant. And that just leads to more of the negative thoughts. And that leads to more of the negative energy and mindset and emotions, which then upset our physical body. And we have digestive problems and we can't sleep at night and our heart rate is up and we're having anxiety. So I was very mindful of whenever those thoughts would come into my mind of, I wish something would happen to them, or like they're, that stuff, to number one, this was always on my finger. So Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. But my motto became, what can I learn about myself? What can I learn from this experience? And who do I want to be in the face of this? Do I want to show up as the crazy, jealous, angry, soon-to-be ex-wife that was rejected, being all crazy? No, I don't want to be that woman. Am I feeling those things? Of course, because I'm human. But really, who do I want to become? Who do I want to be in the face of this? Because I live a very public life, people are watching me, and I've got followings. And so, yes, I can stay home behind closed doors, but I really wanted to come out of this situation a better woman, spiritually, energetically, mentally, emotionally, physically. And so I chose to redirect all of my awareness and my attention inside.
And from all these years, you did it?
For the last 3 years. That's all I've been doing.
Accomplish?
I feel like I'm a better person. I'm a stronger person. Like, this is the first time I have publicly spoken about what actually happened, because I never wanted to go there. Like, the whole thing becomes, who cares what happened? What are you going to do with that? Who do you want to become? Even though you had this terrible, heartbreaking experience, who do you want to become? How can I model being someone who is in these teachings? I mean, this is the work that I teach, right? And so beyond the talk, there's the walk. And I've been in my walk for the last 3 years because I want to come out of this. The other thing is like karma, right? Anytime you have a thought or an ill wish or ill will toward another human being, essentially, energetically, you're putting that out there, and it's going to come back to you in some way, shape, or form. And I didn't want that karma. I wanted the karma of, what feedback can I take? Like, where can I look at maybe how I might have contributed to him wanting to leave the marriage in that way? Are there red flags that I was choosing to not look at or not deal with or take action to reconcile or resolve? Like,
but that is not putting the guilty on you, right?
Yeah, I wanted to not put the guilt on me, but I wanted to really look at myself. Like, how did I contribute to this?
Right. We all co-create somehow.
Sure. Yeah. And so it's a waste of time and energy, and it's a waste of your precious life to be circling, like the hamster wheel, being the hamster inside the hamster wheel, just thinking the same thoughts every single day over and over and over again. Because then at some point you become a victim of your pain, and that becomes your story, and you don't do anything empowering with that. I'm a better leader, teacher, coach, mentor because of what I went through. And I feel like choosing to channel all of that negative energy into, number one, doing my own work, staying in my own lane, right? Lots of self-care. And I channeled all of my anger and frustration and rage into flying.
And talking about victimization and victim, how can someone realize or be aware that maybe, because I don't think sometimes people realize about it. How can someone realize that is becoming or acting as a victim?
That's a really great question. And I feel like it's kind of a fine line, right? Because the story, the thing that happened, like say, just using my own experience, using language like he did this to me, he did this to our marriage, right? Those statements are true, right? It's being truthful, and it's saying this is what
you're telling a story. He did that, she did that. This is how it happens.
Correct. And I think that it turns into like you become the victim when you allow that to be the only story that you're telling.
Okay.
So for me, all of the things happened. I've spent the last 3 years doing trauma work, healing work, doing all of the things that I've been doing, a lot of self-care, flying. And now I can talk about what happened as like, this is an event or an experience that happened. Yet I can speak about what I chose to do with that energy and who I chose to become as a result of what I was going through. And that's the empowerment piece. Had I stayed for the last 3 years in the same story and telling everyone that would listen, here's what happened. Can you believe it? Poor me. Oh my God, I don't know how I'm ever gonna recover from this. So there's a fine line between when that is your truth and your reality at the very beginning. It's like, oh my God, like, I don't know how I'm gonna recover from this. Oh my God, this happened to me. Oh my God, I feel like my life force is slipping out of me. I literally felt like I was dying, right? So at the beginning, it's just being with what is. It's being truthful and honest and acknowledging this happened. Here's how I feel. I'm not doing very well. I really need help, or I really just need to go sleep it off for several days. And then there's a line that after a period of time, like once you cross that line, you have to wake up one day and be like, okay, I'm still in pain. I still have emotions around what happened, and I'm not going to let this define me. That right there is where you cross over the threshold into, I'm moving forward toward empowerment. I'm going to do something productive with my time and my energy and with my thoughts, And I think that I'm going to be honest with you. This is a very vulnerable thing for me to share. There was a time within the last year where I was very, very, very scared. And I was scared because I felt like, have I allowed myself to stay in this sadness and this grief and this story for too long? Because I looked around my life and I'm like, I have nothing going on. Like, I don't even get out of my sweatpants. I get up, I do my workout, I check a few emails, and then I go back to bed, or I lay on the couch and I cry and I binge watch, 5 seasons of The Handmaid's Tale or Yellowstone or whatever's on TV. I was scared that I had let myself stay in the energy of grief for too long, and that the inertia that I was becoming depressed, like severely clinically depressed. And I even spoke with my trauma therapist a year ago this month. And I said, you know what, Di, I think I might be depressed. I think I might need to go on meds, like antidepressants. And I was on them, in my youth. When I was in my 20s, I was on them for a decade or so. But I was very scared. And it was when I had that call with her and that realization that I thought, you know what? This is not going to be how this story goes. And I just began doing things differently. I mean, I could sit and make a list and share them with all of you, but it's self-care. It's getting out in nature. It's getting out and meeting new people, traveling, you know, whatever I needed to do, because at that point I needed to get the energy moving again. I had been stagnant for 3 years.
Right.
So to answer your question, there's a fine line. Like, it's okay to be truthful, to acknowledge like, hey, this thing happened and it was awful and I'm feeling it and it's anguish and you know, like, it's okay to do that. But you also, there's going to be a time where, and you'll usually know, you'll kind of get a sense like, you know what, I'm so sick of telling the story and I really just wish that I could be better.
Right.
You know? And so if you're not able to pull out of that on your own, hire a coach, hire a therapist, hire a trauma therapist. If what you went through was, you know, a traumatic experience for you, get the help and the support that you need on whatever level you're needing it at. You know,
and hire and taste it, because sometimes people try one system, support system, and it doesn't click or work, and they may bang that like, oh no, that doesn't work for me. Sometimes there is not a good clicking with that coach, and you can try another coach, you can try another therapist where you feel more comfortable, where you feel home. And because, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work at the first, you know, meeting or appointment, whatever. So Trista, we're heading towards the end of the program, and I can talk to you forever, and you're being so nice and so loving to share all this private stuff that, you know, I totally believe you when you say I haven't been sharing this like the news, you know. So I do believe there is always a good reason for things that happen, and I'm sure more than one person can relate of what you're sharing. And I already have all these ideas and tips that you mentioned that I think they're great, because like you said, there are moments that you may feel like you are getting the power and then suddenly have this relapse, you know, and feel bad about relapsing or what? I was already feeling fine, and why am I thinking? Wake up, you know. And I think we are very hard on ourselves, more than what we think. So, but before we finish, I want to ask you two things. One, do you think that not being okay in the love level, in emotional level, in that kind of energy affects the money energy or the economy energy? And since we'll get there, do you think it's easier to survive to emotional loss that economy loss? You know, like you lose a job, a career, you're broke.
I think that loss is loss, right? When we lose our career and our job, the first thing that we become terrified of is our security, right? How are we going to pay for our home? How are we going to buy groceries, put gas in the car? You know, it's more of a survival energy when it's the loss of a job or your financial income. When it's a love loss, it almost feels like it's just ripping out your heart and soul from the inside out, which can still create a sense of like an existential crisis, right? Like all of a sudden your person is gone. And especially if it's linked up like you and me, when you work together and all of a sudden that is gone as well as the relationship, it can feel like you're stripped of your identity. That was how I felt. And that's why I answered at the beginning of this call, who are you? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Call me in 2 months and I'll tell you. You know, to answer the previous question about do the emotions affect the financial piece? You know, I really think that, first of all, emotions are energy in motion. And energy all has its own vibration. So anything that affects us emotionally is going to affect every area of our life. So if I'm sad because I just lost my marriage, that is going to most likely, unless I'm really good at compartmentalizing, it's likely going to affect my health and fitness. It's likely going to affect my career, my relationships with my friends, my ability to stay connected with personal growth and spiritual development, right? Because my whole world has just been turned upside down, and I'm frantically trying to get away from all of the uncomfortable, terrible feelings. So vibrationally speaking, it's going to affect everything. The question becomes, how are you managing your mental and emotional states? Are you able to be in your grief in those hours when you're at home or when you're not working? And can you suck it up really when it's time to go to the office? Or, you know, if you work from home online remotely, like, can you compartmentalize, right? But yes, I mean, the overall answer is, does it mean that simply because you got your heart broken that you're going to go broke? No, not at all. However, you do want to be you want to be thinking about, how can I tend to my spiritual body? How can I be tending to my energy levels, my energy body, right? Like I do energy clearing at the end of every day. I do dream interpretation. I do mindset stuff to keep my mind right? So I'm looking at different things that I can be doing throughout the day to strengthen and to rebuild those areas that I know, like if I'm putting a little bit of attention here, 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 and here, whatever I'm going through here, those other things are just going to very slowly help to stabilize me and lift me and support me while I'm going through the process. And it's just, I'll finish that thought with, please remember that grief comes in waves. There are lots of phases of grief. And there have been lots of times over the last few years where I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I've just had the most amazing day. And it lasted for 2 or 3 or 4 days or a week. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm through it. I'm good. I'm great. You know, I'm back, world. And then it'll just come and slam me again for several months.
Wow, that's super interesting. You know, okay, so that's a fact that grief comes in wave. So they're just like the ocean wave.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I didn't know that before. Like I didn't know a whole lot about grief. I'm not a grief therapist specifically. I do have a girlfriend who is, but I had to go through the experience of it to be like, oh, this is what's happening. Right. And so after that happened a few times, maybe 3 or 4 times over the last few years, where I would have these short, like a few days or maybe like a week where life was amazing. And then I would get hit with another wave. And so after that happened 2 or 3 times, I learned to appreciate and have gratitude for those great days and to keep moving forward in my life in a positive way. But I was always ready, you know, because I was like, it's only going to be a matter of time before another wave of that grief comes in. So how can I build myself up through self-care, have a support system, my daily practices, so that when the next wave comes, I'm a little bit stronger.
So when the next wave comes, do you have a bathing suit? Do you have the snorkelings? Do you have the mask, the oxygen tank?
No, that's why I started flying. I'm like, forget about the ocean. I'm like, just going to get above it all.
You are amazing. You are my idol, let me tell you. I've seen those videos. Oh my God. All right. I want to take the last 2 minutes just to tell people how they can reach to you. I know you work on this shadow. We didn't have time to talk about the shadow. People were asking me, what's the shadow? Well, you know, la sombra. Todos tenemos esta sombra. So if they want to know more about your courses, your one-on-one coaches, your books and all that, please let us know. What are you working on?
So if you want to just learn, if you want to just check me out, you can go to my website, which is TrasThorp.com. And you can look at the different courses that I offer. My course, Always Be Rising, which came from learning how to fly through healing from divorce. It's an 8-week online course. We begin that on Wednesday, February 1st. We're going to run that for 8 weeks. And it's a women's empowerment retreat. And I'm willing to open it up to men as well, because I know that we all need support and love and healing. And I also have a 6-month program called the Luminary Path, which starts out with going back into childhood and healing childhood trauma, generational trauma. Nice. Then we move into a 2-month empowerment phase, and then we end that with 2 months of shadow work. And then there's a level 2 and a level 3 and so on. But those are the 2 courses that I offer right now, as well as my one-on-one. So the best thing to do is just go to my website, check it out. You can also find me on Facebook, and please feel free to just send me a direct message through Facebook. I'm the only one. I don't have a whole team of assistants. I'm going to be the one responding. So just tell me that you came through Sonia and this podcast, and we can set up some time to talk if that's what you'd like to do. Also Instagram.
All right. And that's how I'm glad it's there, TrasThorp.com. Okay, it's right there on her picture. And I like that part of, you know, working first, the childhood and all this healing, and then move to end up with shadow. Who knows? Maybe I'm becoming your student and you're becoming my teacher again. Yes. I love that. I think the best, and this is very personal. And I was reading about this the other day. I think the person that can guide, if someone can guide you in life, if someone that lived that experience, I mean, there is always going to be people that can teach you things by the book, by statistics, by method. But there is never is going to be the person that incarnates the situation, and you can actually say, you know how I feel. So I think you're the best person to train, to learn, and to overcome, because there you are. Whatever you did, it did work, and it's still working.
Yeah. And really, if you come to Facebook to hang out with me, look for the Facebook group called Always Be Rising. That's my motto. That's really, you know, the space that I live from, and it's free, and it's just a place to come and hang out and get to know me. Yeah, it's a Facebook group. And then I've also got, I have this out because I was teaching earlier today, but I have my book that's called Healing Your Heart. And then there's also an accompaniment. It's a workbook, full color journal workbook with lots of self-reflection questions.
I love it.
So that's another option
for Christmas.
Yes, late Christmas presents.
I know. And those are only in your website, not in Amazon, right?
They are on Amazon. Both of them are on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting my journal right away. Trista, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Sonia.
For sharing this. The first person that helped, it's myself. And if I want to continue teaching, definitely it's something great that you share with me, and I can also share with others.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. You're so beautiful. It's so wonderful to see you after so many years. And I look forward to staying in touch. And yeah, let's schedule a shadow podcast.
Let's do that. We will do that. And I am so interested in promoting what you're doing, because I do believe we need it. Not everyone. I have friends, and I have friends coach, and I have friends that teach so many things, but not everybody do this Zoom in. You know, I'm sick and tired of just get over it. You know, that is something so easy to do, and it's not. And I don't know if because I just went through something that I went through 11 years ago with somebody else. I don't know if it's because of that, my interest right now, but I do know that it feels ugly. And I do want people to know that there are many ways that we can survive, as Gloria Gaynor said, and as I said at the beginning, and that for that, we need system support. And unfortunately, not always we have the best system support. Example, I love my mom, and I always put her as an example, and I know she loved me, but when I tell her things that happened to me, she will say like, oh, please, come on, just wrap things around and move over. Just like that. And so when you don't have assistant support, you have great professionals that can guide you, and better if those professionals know what they're talking about.
That's right.
The most important part.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Just blah, blah, bleep, bleep saying, and you know, you don't even put it in yourself. You don't even exercising, you know, the double face. It's better to be with a good professional, and then, you know, we can move over. Trista, thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me, Sonia. Happy New Year to you and to all of your listeners.
Thank you so much. Bien, entonces Café Club, eso fue el día de hoy con THORP desde California, Estados Unidos. Si quieres escucharla, lo único que tienes que hacer es, yo sé que todos nuestros ecuatorianos y latinos saben inglés y pueden básicamente no solo poner los subtítulos, los traductores, sino que también pueden ser parte de estos increíbles cursos, libros, workbooks que tiene Trista y que nos puede compartir como herramientas para poder trabajar en movernos hacia adelante en las relaciones, no quedarnos como víctimas, no seguir repitiendo la historia de siempre, sino realmente sacar lo mejor de las malas experiencias. Yo por ahora los dejo hasta la próxima semana. Me encantó arrancar este 2023 teniendo herramientas y sabiendo qué hacer. Recuerda, las veces que viene a tu mente un mal pensamiento, lo puedes redirigir. Y para eso, por favor, escríbenos o escríbele a ThorP en Instagram. Gracias, Café Club. Proud to be part of Café Club. Chao, chao.